Good morning and welcome to the Civically Minded Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Wing. I'm a ruling elder and assistant to the pastor at Shearer Presbyterian Church in Mooresville, North Carolina. We are a PCA, Bible believing, Reformed congregation just north of Charlotte. So if you find yourself in the Charlotte or certainly the Lake Norman areas and you're looking for an expository Reformed congregation, please come think about checking us out and giving us a visit. We have Lord's Day worship at 11 a.m. on Sundays and a Wednesday night prayer meeting at 6. Come see us sometime. Tell us you heard about us on the Civically Minded Podcast. I sure would appreciate it. Well, it's Tuesday, November 7th, 2023, and it's election day here in America. So I decided what better day to have the inaugural episode of a podcast called Civically Minded than on election day. So if the algorithms have landed you here and you're wondering what exactly a civically minded podcast is, well, I'm glad you asked. I want to discuss all things civics, ecclesiology, and family, pepper in a healthy dose of theology, Bible, and current events, and that's the idea for this podcast. But who am I? Well, I'm a husband, a father of three, a full-time staff member at my church, an American, a musician, a Bible college and seminary educated man, and most of all, a devout Christian. I believe God created the world and all that is in it, human beings being the pinnacle and ultimate expression of that creation. I believe we were created in God's image and therefore have unique and intrinsic value. I believe God made all these things in a literal 6 days, and he declared them all good. Genesis chapters 1 and 2. I believe man rebelled and sinned against God, and because of Adam's initial and very federal rebellion, he cast all his descendants into an openly hostile relationship against their creator. Genesis chapter 3, Romans chapter 5. I believe that God sent his one and only Son, Jesus Christ, to live sinlessly, die painfully as a substitution for his believers, all of whom were pre-known and preordained, to rise victoriously and ascend visibly back to the Father. You can find that in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and many other places in the New Testament especially. This triumphant life out of death granted him the very real kingdom he was promised by his Father. Psalm 2, Psalm 110, 1 Corinthians 15, and others. And now we, his people, must live in accordance with the reality of this kingdom. I believe that God established spheres of sovereignty within all human society for its good and governance, and we do well to maintain the proper order of these sovereign spheres. I believe that fathers, pastors, and civil magistrates have far more influence and power than they usually understand and typically bring to bear. And if they would rightly situate themselves underneath the supreme lordship and rule of Christ, the only true King, the world would be a better place, and God, by result, would be far more honored. These are just some of my beliefs, and if you, like me, think that things have gotten awfully weird out there, and you don't recognize the landscape any longer, or maybe you're genuinely afraid of the society that your kids are increasingly finding normal, then join me, and let's reflect Christianly about our lives. And let's give great thought to, as Francis Schaeffer once said, how should we then live? Thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you again soon on the Civically Minded Podcast.